It was a hot Texas afternoon, the kind where the sun beats down on the earth, turning everything to a dusty brown. I was out by the north fence, checking on the cattle, with Blue, my loyal blue heeler, trotting by my side. Blue wasn't just a dog. He was family. He'd been with me through thick and thin, a constant companion on this sprawling ranch that had been in my family for generations. The peace was shattered by the roar of an engine. A white SUV, with the dreaded HOA logo emblazoned on the side, bounced down the dirt track leading to my property. My gut clenched. The Homeowners Association had been a thorn in my side ever since the new development sprung up on the edge of my land a few years back. They were city folk, with city ideas, and they couldn't seem to grasp the concept of ranch life. The SUV stopped, and a man in a khaki uniform stepped out. It was Dale, the HOA enforcer, a man I'd had several unpleasant run-ins with before. He was always nitpicking about something: the height of my grass, the state of my fences, the unsightly equipment I used for ranching. "Afternoon, Mr. Johnson," Dale said, his voice dripping with false politeness. "Dale," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "What brings you way out here?" "We've received a complaint about your dog," he said, pulling out a clipboard. "Apparently, he's been seen running loose and harassing residents in the development." I bristled. "That's a load of bull. Blue doesn't leave this property unless I'm with him." Dale raised an eyebrow. "That's not what we've heard. We've had multiple reports." "Reports from who?" "The same folks who complain about the rooster crowing at dawn." I scoffed. "Look, Dale, I keep my dog under control. He's not bothering anyone." "I'm going to have to issue a warning, Mr. Johnson," Dale said, scribbling on his clipboard. "If we receive any further complaints, we'll be forced to take action." "Action? What kind of action?" I challenged, my patience wearing thin. "Fines, for starters," Dale said, his eyes glinting. "And if the problem persists, we may have to involve animal control." The thought of animal control taking Blue sent a jolt of anger through me. "You're not taking my dog," I said, my voice low and dangerous. Dale smirked. "We'll see about that, Mr. Johnson. Just keep your dog contained." He turned to leave, but then he paused, his gaze fixed on something behind me. "And what's that I saw over there?" he said, pointing towards my old tractor, which was parked near the barn. "That thing's got to go. It's a blight on the neighborhood." That was the last straw. "Get off my property, Dale," I said, my hand instinctively reaching for the rifle I kept in my truck. "You've said your piece. Now get out." Dale puffed out his chest. "I'm not afraid of you, Mr. Johnson. I'm just doing my job." "You're trespassing," I said, my grip tightening on the rifle. "This is private property. Leave now, or you'll regret it." Dale stood his ground, a smug look on his face. "You wouldn't dare." That's when Blue, sensing my agitation, started barking and growling at Dale. He was a protective dog, fiercely loyal to his family. "Get that mutt under control." Dale yelled, taking a step towards Blue. Blue, feeling threatened, lunged at Dale, nipping at his heels. Dale stumbled back, yelping in surprise. He pulled out a can of pepper spray from his belt and sprayed it directly into Blue's face. Blue howled in pain, collapsing to the ground, pouring at his eyes. I saw red. This man had just attacked my dog, on my property. The rage that surged through me was unlike anything I'd ever felt before. Without thinking, I raised my rifle and fired. The sound of the gunshot echoed across the ranch. Dale screamed and clutched his leg, collapsing to the ground. I stood there, frozen, the rifle still smoking in my hands. The reality of what I had just done crashed down on me like a ton of bricks. I had shot a man. Blue, still whimpering, crawled towards me, nudging my hand with his nose. I knelt down and hugged him tight, burying my face in his fur. "It's okay, boy," I whispered. "It's okay." But it wasn't okay. My life had just changed forever. I knew I had to call the sheriff, but I hesitated. What would I say? How could I explain what had happened? Would they believe me? As I stood there, wrestling with my conscience, I saw Dale fumbling for his phone. He was calling for help. I knew I couldn't run. This was my land, my home. I had to face the consequences of my actions. I took a deep breath and walked towards my truck, grabbing my own phone. I dialed 911. "This is John Johnson," I said, my voice trembling. "I need to report a shooting on my property." The dispatcher's voice was calm and professional. "Tell me what happened, Mr. Johnson." I took another deep breath and started to explain, the words tumbling out of my mouth in a rush. I told her about the HOA, about Dale's constant harassment, about the pepper spray, and about Blue. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Stay where you are, Mr. Johnson," the dispatcher said finally. "The sheriff's department is on its way." I hung up the phone and waited, the weight of my actions pressing down on me. The sun beat down mercilessly, and the air was thick with the smell of dust and gunpowder. It seemed like an eternity before I heard the sirens in the distance, growing louder and louder as they approached. Soon, the ranch was swarming with law enforcement officers. They took me into custody without a struggle. As they led me away in handcuffs, I saw Blue watching me, his eyes filled with confusion and concern. I knew I had made a terrible mistake, but I also knew that I had done it to protect my family, to protect my home, and to protect my dog. Whether that would be enough to justify my actions in the eyes of the law remained to be seen. My ranch, my life, was about to change forever. Characters. Jed, a ranch owner, weathered and hardened by years of working the land. Dale, an overzealous HOA officer, eager to enforce rules. Maggie, Jed's loyal and aging Blue Heeler dog. Sarah, Jed's daughter, a veterinarian, deeply connected to her family and their land. Sheriff Brody, a local lawman, fair-minded and respected in the community. I shot HOA cop that trespassed on my ranch and hurt my dog. The sun beat down on Jed's ranch, baking the dry earth and shimmering off the barbed wire fence that marked his property line. Jed squinted, wiping sweat from his brow with a calloused hand. He surveyed his land, a sprawling expanse of grazing fields and rugged terrain that had been in his family for generations. It was his sanctuary, his livelihood, his life. A sudden bark shattered the stillness. Maggie, his old Blue Heeler, bounded towards the fence, her tail wagging furiously. Jed followed, a sense of unease prickling at the back of his neck. A gleaming white SUV with the words Homeowners Association Enforcement emblazoned on the side had stopped just outside his gate. Dale, the HOA officer, stepped out, adjusting his tie and smoothing down his neatly combed hair. He was new to the area, a city transplant who seemed determined to impose his vision of order on the wild, untamed landscape. "Mr. Harding." Dale called out, his voice crisp and officious. "That's me," Jed replied, his voice gruff. "What can I do for you?" "I'm here to inform you that your property is in violation of several HOA regulations," Dale said, holding up a clipboard. "Specifically, the height of your grass exceeds the permitted limit, your fence is in disrepair, and you have unregistered livestock." Jed's jaw tightened. "This ain't a suburban lawn, son. This is a working ranch. The grass is feed for my cattle, the fence keeps them in, and those cattle are registered with the state, not your fancy association. Regulations are regulations, Mr. Harding. You signed an agreement when you purchased this property," Dale insisted, his voice rising slightly. "I didn't sign nothing," Jed retorted. "My grandpappy homesteaded this land. Ain't no HOA gonna tell me how to run my ranch." Dale's face flushed. "I'm afraid I'm going to have to issue you a formal warning. If the violations are not rectified within 7 days, you will be subject to a fine." Jed glared at him. "You step 1 foot on my property, and you'll be trespassing." Dale smirked. "I have the right to access any property within the HOA's jurisdiction to ensure compliance." He reached for the gate. "Stay back," Jed warned, his hand instinctively moving towards the holstered revolver on his hip. Dale ignored him and opened the gate. Maggie, sensing Jed's agitation, barked ferociously and nipped at Dale's heels. "Get away from me, you mutt!" Dale shouted, kicking out at Maggie. The kick landed squarely on Maggie's side, sending her yelping and tumbling to the ground. Jed saw red. Maggie was more than just a dog. She was his companion, his protector, a member of his family. In a blind rage, Jed drew his revolver. "I told you to stay off my property," he roared. Dale froze, his eyes wide with fear. "You wouldn't." Jed didn't hesitate. He fired a warning shot into the ground, inches from Dale's feet. The sound echoed across the ranch, sharp and deafening. Dale screamed and stumbled backward, scrambling for the gate. He fumbled with the latch, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Jed stood there, his gun still raised, his chest heaving. Dale finally managed to open the gate and scrambled back to his SUV, his face pale and his eyes filled with terror. He jumped inside, started the engine, and sped away, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake. Jed stood there for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest. He holstered his revolver and knelt beside Maggie, examining her for injuries. She whimpered softly, licking his hand. "You're gonna be all right, girl," he murmured, stroking her fur. "You're gonna be just fine." He helped Maggie to her feet and led her back to the house, his mind racing. He knew he had crossed a line. Shooting a gun, even a warning shot, was a serious offense. He had to call Sarah. Sarah, his daughter, was a veterinarian in the nearby town. She was also the voice of reason in the family, the one who could always calm him down and help him see things clearly. He found his cell phone in the house and dialed her number. "Dad, what's wrong?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with concern. Jed took a deep breath and told her everything that had happened, from Dale's arrival to the shot he had fired. Sarah was silent for a moment. "Dad, you shouldn't have done that," she said finally. "You could be in serious trouble." "I know, baby, I know," Jed said, his voice heavy with regret. "But he hurt Maggie. I just lost it." "I understand, Dad, but you need to call Sheriff Brody. Tell him what happened. It's better if you go to him than if he comes looking for you." Jed sighed. He knew Sarah was right. Sheriff Brody was a fair man, a man who understood the ways of the country. He would listen to Jed's side of the story. "All right, Sarah," Jed said. "I'll call him." He hung up the phone and dialed the sheriff's office. Sheriff Brody answered on the second ring. "Jed, what can I do for you?" Jed told him the story again, his voice steady but filled with remorse. "Jed, I'm gonna have to come out there," Sheriff Brody said. "I need to take a statement and collect the weapon." "I understand, Sheriff," Jed replied. "I'll be waiting." Sheriff Brody arrived an hour later, his patrol car kicking up dust as it pulled into the ranch. He was a tall, weathered man with a kind face and a calm demeanor. He listened patiently as Jed recounted the events, his expression grave. He examined the spot where Jed had fired the shot and took the revolver into evidence. "Jed, I'm gonna have to take you in," Sheriff Brody said. "I'm sure you understand." Jed nodded. "I do, Sheriff. I ain't gonna run." As Sheriff Brody led Jed to the patrol car, Sarah arrived, her face etched with worry. She rushed to Jed and hugged him tightly. "It's gonna be all right, Dad," she whispered. "I'll get you a lawyer." Jed smiled weakly. "I know, baby. I know." As the patrol car pulled away, Jed looked back at his ranch, at the fields and the fence and the house that had been in his family for generations. He knew he had made a mistake, but he also knew that he had been pushed too far. He had defended his land, his family, and his dog. He would face the consequences, whatever they may be. He just hoped that in the end, justice would prevail. He wasn't a bad man. He was just a rancher protecting what was his.